the From Grief to Purpose channel. By all means, again, ask your questions if you need to. And we are live on YouTube here. I'm gonna let it come through. Give it a couple of minutes. Make sure everything pulls through. All right, so there we go. Yeah, just give it a few minutes. Let's let a few people join in before I get started. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Feel free to come on in. Get ready for this live as we prepare for this live. All right. A few minutes. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, you guys, welcome to From Grief to Purpose. I'm your host, Nina. And on this channel, we talk about grief, we talk about purpose, and everything in between. But most importantly, we invite God into the process because we're not trying to do life without Him over
Amen.
here. So let's get into it. Now, today we're talking about something real, exploring triggers and how they impact our grief. Now, I'm live here on our YouTube channel. I'm also live here on TikTok. So, TikTok family, if you have any questions, by all means ask. And then, of course, if you all have any questions as we go along, please ask. Now, let's get into this bit about grief. Grief, I just want you all to know, for those that have been following us, you understand we've been getting into the understanding of grief and, walking it down a little bit. But grief doesn't just, come from losing a loved one. It can come from a divorce. It can come from a breakup, the end of a relationship you thought would last, forever, get married, have children, all the things, right? It can come from losing your health, losing a job, getting laid off, or even retiring from something that once gave you identity, or shifting from a career that you spent years on, and not necessarily retiring, but that gave you a sense of identity. Grief, can show up after also losing friendships. Who would think that, right? But it does occur. Even experiencing rejection and walking through major life transitions, those storms that are pretty heavy, and even becoming a different version of yourself and having to let go of who you used to be. So, today on my panel today, two people that I trust very much so with this particular conversation. Joining me are Pastor Shaniqua Wright-Karanja and Pastor Jay Cookingham. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves so that they can let you know a little bit more about them before we get into this conversation. And I'm going to, if Pastor Shaniqua, if you could please go first.
Okay, yes. Hi, my name is Shaniqua. I am a licensed pastoral counselor with the National Christian Counseling Association. I'm also the pastor of a doula mission house. We work with grieving people, people who have experienced life trauma. And I almost just when I say life trauma, you might as well just say life, because I feel like sometimes life is just traumatic in itself. But we work to help people get to a place of restoration, whatever way that looks like for them.
All right. Thank you so much. And, Pastor Jay, would you mind going next?
Sure. My grief journey started, 6 years ago when I lost my wonderful bride, my wife, for 37 years, and that started me on this path of trying to deal with my own grief and then hopefully helping other people with their grief by sharing my story. Mostly, I'm a father of 7. Christine gave me 7 beautiful children. I pastor a very small church here in a small town of Hyde Park, New York. And I get to speak at men's events around the country when God allows me to do that. So that's a synopsis of who I am.
All right. Thank you so much. Give me 1 second to my guests real quickly and to TikTok real quick because I'm not seeing the stream on YouTube just yet. So let me check real quick. Look, I'm the tech person and I'm the host and
I
all
get
the
it.
things.
Yeah.
While you do
One second.
that, will it help for us to be chatting while you're doing that?
Yes, please. You also can go ahead and chat it up. I just want to make sure that it is recording. In
Oh,
the sake of chatting, let me just pose a question real quick, but I don't want to miss anything.
sure.
Um, so let me just say this. The question, this is a very sensitive subject for me. I don't know how sensitive the subject is for you. So maybe we can start off in our triggers a sensitive area for the two of you.
Oh, yes, it is. Especially as it relates to grief and loss. I have stopped counting the major losses that I have experienced. Um, just, but my most recent loss would have been my dad and my granddad. We lost them last year, March, a day apart.
Mm.
Um, and it was a very complicated, complex process. And so there are many things that I would say triggers grief reactions from me, many things. And that's after years of working in the grief space. Sometimes you can think, oh, okay, you don't think that you're impervious to grief, but you feel like you kind of have a grasp, I guess you could say. And then
Okay.
it hits you and you're like, wow. So yes, for me, a definite yes.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on I'm
Triggers.
sorry.
No,
Pause
go ahead.
for one second. Let me go because it's saying I'm experiencing an error because I don't want to miss and I want to for us to talk too much if it's not.
Okay.
For some reason it is. Let me try it one more time. TikTok family, brace for technical difficulties here. I'm going to close it out actually and start again. One moment. All right. Sorry about that, you guys. Thank you for your
No worries. No worries whatsoever. Tech is not always our friend.
Oh, it's never my friend.
I was in the IT world for many years, and it wasn't not my friend either.
But
Okay,
I
so
will.
it was recording and then it wasn't showing on this particular end. Okay, so I'm gonna go back in
There it is.
and
I
it
just
is
checked for you too. Yeah, it's streaming.
okay for whatever reason. Okay, going again. Okay, and it is let me just make sure.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you disappeared.
Wasn't expecting that.
One moment. One moment. Okay. All right. Okay.
Now you're back. Hey.
We're gonna have a great conversation. All these technical difficulties occur. Okay. All right. We should be back on all ends.
Mhm.
Here we go. And I don't believe I need to. Okay. All right. So we should be good. Okay. So I apologize, uh, Pastor Jay. Please
No worries.
and share what you were getting into.
Uh, Obviously, triggers are very real. I mean, you can't go through life without something triggering you. But with grief, yeah, I mean, there's calendar dates, there's anniversaries, there's birthdays, and then there's the everyday ordinary moments. You know, the hidden jokes that you had with the person that no one else heard. You know, or understood. You know, things like that. So yeah, I mean, you have to, even if you're experienced, like you said, Pastor, that you're dealing professionally with these kind of, you think you know how to avoid them or how to deal with them, and oh, wham, they come and hit you. And I liken to grief to like a waves of the ocean. If you never turn your back on the ocean, because a wave will come and knock you on your butt, you know. So this is what grief does as well.
Mm. So like I said before, this is not my favorite topic because it's something that I deal with. And I'm sorry, I wanted to mention too earlier. So, Pastor Shaniqua, she's also my pastor. So I get to serve underneath her. So, and she, able to talk about, a lot of these topics, which is very helpful for me. So community, you guys is everything. Again, TikTok family, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube. So a part of me wanting to share this particular conversation, as I've shared previously on my channel, I've experienced the loss of both my parents. My mother passed away when I was 17. I just turned 17 actually. And my father passed during, I've shared during the height of mid-COVID. So I have, the life experience of, both parents being gone from this earth. But which is not a great feeling, whether, no matter what, no matter who you are. And so this particular topic, and again, I wanted the two of you on because I feel like you all verse how you communicate about grief so well. And I feel like I'm just a baby. I'm just a baby in this thing as far as conversating and finding the language. I feel like with other people, I can talk amazing. Like I can help somebody through but when it comes to my particular, sometimes those touchy spots, it's a little bit like touch and go. So I'm learning even myself to, communicate certain areas. But to be transparent, triggers for me relate around like my mother's death. And I'm just going to give an example. So she passed away 3 days after my birthday. My birthday is May 2nd. She passed May 5th. And so for the holiday season, my father passed away, or we had his services around the 15th of November. November 15th, he passed. And that's like Thanksgiving is coming up, all the things. So it's like, great. I get to experience these things around significant dates. So that's like a double trigger for me. So it's like mom, it's like birthday, death. And then for holidays, the holidays are here, which is a time of family and get together, but my parents aren't here. So walking through those things are very interesting to me. And I've had my questions, even as, someone that loves the Lord. And I'm like, okay, I've been praying. I've been doing all the things should I be at this place of arrival and healing and da, da, da. So that's why I wanted to have this conversation. So one of my questions, I'm gonna start us off with this question. Again, this is conversational based. If you all have questions in the chat, please feel free to leave them. If you have questions, TikTok family, as it relates to triggers and grief, please leave them. I'll do my best to scroll and answer your questions. Give their questions to the panel so that we can answer them. But how do we define a trigger, especially in the context of grief? I know I gave an example. Well, I didn't really give an example. I just gave kind of like the dates. But how do we define a trigger as it relates to grief and what that looks like?
So I'm gonna say this. First, I first need to say this. Grief, believe it or not, even though there are a lot of technical aspects, fancy words even that we can attribute to it. I'm the type of person I like to take off the shine, the intellectual aspects of things and get into the cracks, because that's really where we are when we're talking about grief, so the way that I would define a trigger as it relates to grief is something that maybe you are walking down the street and the wind blows on your face and the smell of roses hits you, and your loved one's favorite summer scent or spring scent was roses. And now you've got this feeling of your heart's pounding, you feel your eyes sting, you almost stop in your tracks because the thought of them comes up, and it can come up and it can be a sweet and bitter feeling. The sweetness of, wow, I get to smell these roses and think about them, someone I love so deeply. But it's also, wow, I'm smelling these roses and they're not here to smell them with me. And so that's the best way I can describe a grief trigger, is something that creates a physical, mental, emotional response in you, sometimes unexpectedly.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put that, because obviously there's technical jargon to use and stuff like that, but I think a trigger is anything that pokes you awake.
Mm-hmm.
To the moment, to, like you said, to experience the memory as if it was happening just a few minutes ago. People ask, well, how long ago did your wife die? Well, I say 6 years, but it feels like 6 minutes ago. There are some days it feels like 6 seconds ago. So triggers are these things that kind of poke you and maybe continue to poke you during the holiday seasons. Yes, my wife died around Christmas, her most favorite holiday of the year. And so Christmas is still hard for our family 6 years later. Of course it is, because there's no timetable to the grief. And we shouldn't rush ourselves through this process either. You said something very good, that we maybe speak. I don't want to be an expert on grief. I'd rather not. And I certainly don't want to be an expert on my wife's death. But I do want to talk about it and allow other people, give them permission to talk about what this is painful. This hurts. This sucks. And those triggers, they poke at you and sometimes not in pleasant places.
Yeah. And so for me, like as you all were saying, like it's very true that it's those things that poke you, it's those things that you remember, like as if it was like, something for you, like you were saying, Pastor Shaniqua, the rose smell, the significant dates, Pastor Jay, uh, and then giving voice to it. So that was the place too that I struggled with. I think I was more of I felt the trigger, those pokes, but then tried to avoid it and just tried to like, okay, let's carry on because it's very, it brings you to a space emotionally. And I may not talk for everybody, it brought me to a place emotionally like, okay, do I want to like have all the emotions right now? Because it can feel like it just makes you feel like this happened yesterday and it's like, whoa, should I be feeling like this at this, my life, even though it's been like for my mother, for example, it's been years, and sometimes I will have that feeling or an emotion or a trigger will occur and it's like it takes me right back to
Yeah.
day one. So, so yes. Now I'm gonna try to get through these questions again. Like if you all have any, just flow however you want to flow. My next question would be then, uh why do triggers hit so strongly even when time has passed? And when you guys hear me pause, like I said, this is a very touchy subject for me. So, but again, it's very important to give voice to what we're experiencing. So, why do you all think that triggers hit so strongly even when time has passed?
Well, and I don't, Pastor Jay, if you were going to say something first, I don't want to foreguard your thoughts. Were you going to say something just now?
The first thing that just comes to my mind is, and I appreciate you deferring to me at that moment, but the first thing that comes to mind is because of the great love that was invested in these relationships. So I see sometimes triggers get a negative connotation, and I think we got to kind of dispel that a little bit. They do trigger us, and sometimes it's very painful to feel these emotions and to go through them. But that's what grief is all about. We're supposed to go through these things. So I don't mind my triggers. I'm not saying I enjoy my triggers, but I don't mind them either because I don't think they're all negative in the sense. I tend to look at my triggers as they are reminders of the love that I shared with my wife. And of course they hurt. Yeah, they hurt.
Yeah.
They hurt really badly at times. And sometimes they throw my day off and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes I don't want to feel them, but I've given myself permission. And this is how I feel like grief works, at least for me too, is that if I feel sad, I'm going to feel sad. I'm not going to try to get rid of it. If I feel angry, I'm going to, in appropriate ways, I'm going to get angry. I don't look at my triggers as negative things anymore. They're just reminders of love for me. Yes, they hurt, but they're just reminders of love for me, and that's why they do stir up so many emotions.
Oh, that's good.
I think that they're also hard, and I'm gonna give it a spiritual, leaning for a moment. It's also hard. And we're talking specifically about the grief triggers, and I agree with you, Pastor Jay, about the fact that sometimes it's not all bad because even if there is that tinge of pain when you feel the trigger, it leads to a pleasant thought eventually if you allow yourself. Because
Right.
you're thinking about not just the sadness, but then you get to think of their smile, their, the different things, if you allow it to go there. But
Yeah.
I want to remove trigger for the moment and just talk about grief and why it's hard. The fact is, it was never supposed to be a part of our human condition. It was never supposed to be a part. When the Lord decided that he was going to create Adam and Eve and allow himself to have people that he can love, it was supposed to be us in this beautiful garden,
Amen. Amen.
living life, enjoying the animals, enjoying all these things. And unfortunately, because of the fall, that's when death entered into our existence. Death
True.
entered after we were created. So I like to remind people of that. So it wasn't something that we were designed and wired for, because it wasn't supposed to be a part of the existence of who we are. But because of what happened,
Yeah.
this experience, this thing that none of us are equipped for truly, because it wasn't supposed to be a part of our life, is now a part of our life. It's the reason why it's one of the most hardest things to experience in our life, because there is no equipment for it, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because we
Yeah.
weren't designed for it. And
Mm.
so that's the reason why it hits so hard. That's
Yeah.
the reason why so many years can go by and it's still this gaping hole in our heart, or this ripple effect in our life. It's because we just were not designed that was not the initial design. That
Amen.
wasn't the initial design.
Yeah. Amen. Good
Uh,
thoughts.
yeah, but that's good. Once again, YouTube, if you have any questions, comments, by all means, leave them. TikTok family, again, you're watching a recording of us on discussing a conversation as we're exploring triggers as it relates to grief. And um, again, it's the very, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's all good.
Hey, I almost had a moment when Pastor Jay was talking about the good, how triggers can be hard and they could be positive. It's this is going to sound strange maybe to some people who don't understand this type of loss, but my husband and I lost a baby girl in between our two boys.
Oh, so sorry.
And um, we had a nursery already put together because we had a baby son, and so at the time we didn't know what the gender of our baby was yet. And so we said, we're going to leave this nursery as is. And whether it's a boy or a girl, even these onesies in here, who's going to care if we use a boy onesie on a girl baby? It's a baby. That's what our thoughts were. We're not going to waste this money. And so, unfortunately, as time progressed, we had just gotten into our second trimester and we lost her.
Oh, so
And
sorry.
thank you. And I couldn't go into the nursery at all for a very long time. But what would happen is I would go into like the Walmart and have to pass the infant section to get to where I was going. And I would have the worst meltdowns in the Walmarts. I used to be so embarrassed. And I got to a point where, like, I'm just not going to go back to Walmart. But the truth is, eventually I had to make my way back to Walmart. And not only did I make my way back to Walmart, I made my way back to the infant section because unfortunately life was still, well, I'm going to say fortunately, life was still happening around me. I had people around me having children. There were diapers, wipes, clothes, things to buy other people's children. And so one day I purchased a girl onesie that was not for anyone else's baby but mine, because we discovered we were going to have a girl. And although she was no longer with us, I didn't get to pick out a girl's onesie for my baby. And I said to myself, well, who's putting this rule on me that I can't now? Why is
Right.
it a rule?
Right.
So I
Right.
bought one. And so fast forward, she would have been 11 this year on April 10th, because they had already given us our C-section date when we were in the process because she was a high risk pregnancy. But she would have been 11. I went into my
Wow.
closet 11 years later and I looked at that onesie that I refused to give up. And it hurt, but also it felt special
Hmm.
because I did something that I felt was comforting for me. And even though it brings pain sometimes, it's for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. What a
so
wonderful tribute.
it's,
Yeah.
and I love it. I should have brought it down here so you guys could have seen it.
It's a it's a wonderful tribute. It's a wonderful way to honor your daughter and the memory of that. And that's what I think we have to do to answer some of these triggers is to memorialize something
Yeah.
so that we could honor those losses and remember them. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So, okay, as you can see, but I'm still a little very emotional. I mean, that's a very, and then I also want to take back because when I started crying, I said sorry. I'm not apologetic for my tears at all.
Good.
And I don't want other people to be like that either. The reason why, I'm thankful that God gave me this channel. But I can see why he wants me to walk this out before people. And I definitely, want to make sure that the areas that I have not healed in or tapped into or touched because I didn't want to. I want you, the viewer, to be able to do that. So this is not us, saying that we have all the answers as it relates to grief or triggers in this particular area. You
Oh,
know,
no.
say that we're just exploring a conversation to provide tools or language for you and us because I definitely need it myself. Um, Okay, so my next question, if I can get to it. um, so this is one area that I definitely struggled with. I came into my walk with the Lord. I gave my life to Christ when I was in my early 20s. So, like when you're giving your life to Christ, like it's all, very, joyful, lots of zeal, lots of passion, going after God. Da, 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 da. I'm on high, you know. But a lot of these areas, I noticed as I have matured in my walk with the Lord were put to the back burner, right? There was a sense of healing that took place with certain parts of my life. But then as I started to grow in the Lord, I noticed that these triggers were still here. And I used to always think, is there something wrong with me
Mm,
as it
mm.
relates to God and growing in Him? And is there some miraculous healing that's supposed to take place? Like, what is going on? So I used to always feel bad when I had a trigger, a memory, let me say, of my mom or memory of my even older as my of my father. And I'm like, what is going on? Why can't I get over? Right? Wrong
Right,
terminology, by the way,
right, right.
up his emotions. And then there was a lot of um, anger because I, experienced anger as it related to losing, my parents. I still struggled with, well, why, the whys of, okay, like I don't have my parents. Are you serious? Like, I'm only this age. In my 20s, it was my 20s. Like, I'm only 20, I'm only 30. Now I'm in my 40s, right? But it's like, Lord, like what in the world? Like, so, and it wasn't like me being mad at God. It was more of like, why is this my life? Like, why is, so I wrestle with that. And so my question is, does growing in God and maturing spiritually mean that we should feel less triggers surrounding grief over time? Like, do they go away? Are they gonna go away? Does it get easier to manage? What is y'all's take on this?
Wow.
That's a big question, right?
Will it go away? No. And I can only really speak. I want to say no generally because I do not think that we teach grief in a healthy way. We give people this mindset that there is a healed ED, like you're finished, and that's just not true.
Mm,
So no, I don't think it goes away. Um, does it get easier? It gets different. I can't say it gets easier. It just gets different. Um, and for those of you who are watching who actually do feel mad at God, that's okay too. I know you said that you're not, Manina, but it is okay for those of you who are saying, "Hey, in my grief place right now, I'm angry with the Lord." Here's the thing. He's not he's not upset with you being angry. If anything, he can absolutely understand and relate to you feeling the things that you feel. Imagine how you felt, even though he knew and sent Jesus to die for us. I can imagine as a parent, he's watching this go down, seeing people who said they love him betray him, and he was probably furious. So I don't think, just for those who are watching who thinks, okay, oh, is it bad that I'm mad with God? No. Uh he'll be fine. He wants you to be fine. He'll be fine. He wants you.
Yeah, yeah, true. I don't think it gets any easier. It hasn't been for me to get any easier. I've learned how to carry it better. I've learned new tools and ways of dealing with all the different layers of grief. But the issue with grief is that it always uncovers new layers.
Mhm.
It always uncovers new trigger points. You might have a memory, and all of a sudden you remember it different because God is opening up things, and God wants us to bring all these things to the surface, anger and confusion. I tell God, I at the very beginning, it wasn't so much anger. I was just confused why we had a great marriage. Our marriage was looked at as many others as the marriage to emulate and to follow along with. We were very much in love, very much committed to each other to make our marriage stronger. And God brought my wife home. Uh, okay, I was very confused about this because all I wanted to do was be married. And so in that confusion, there could be anger. And if you read some of my early journal notes, you might not even think I'm a Christian anymore because of some of those early things. Because, but then I recognized that 3/4 of the Psalms are laments. Where the psalmist poured out their heart and their anguish and their hurt and their pain. I mean, how many of them say, "How long, oh God?" you know. And then we have a whole book called Lamentations. So I think God has given us permission to bring everything to the surface, and that's the best thing that we could do. Bring our anger, bring our hurt, bring our pain to God, the only one that can help us make any kind of sense of it. I always ask God this. I said, God, help me misunderstand less.
Good.
And that has really helped me deal with whatever new trigger point might come up.
Yeah, that's really good. Definitely both areas that I'm working in. What I got out of what you guys said is it gets different and learn how to carry it better. And definitely bring it to the Lord as one area that's not what I was doing. I was suffering alone on the inside, trying to manage it by myself. At one point I did go to therapy for my father. That was like, and the only reason why I went to therapy was because I felt like my father's death was like literally the last nail on the coffin. I was like, what? Like, what is going on? I need therapy now. Like, because both parents really, okay. So then, and then that therapist wasn't the best one for me. But, eventually I'll probably seek out another one. But it, like, I was thinking back on Nina, like, my father passed right when I was in my early 40s. And so my mother passed when I was 17. So I was like, all the years that I just kept all of this stuff like to myself, even, being a Christian, not really expressing, like you said, they lamented in Psalms. I did not do any of that, like with the
Right.
Lord, like, why, Lord? Like, I didn't seek him to be like, okay, give me some type of something. Like, it was just me carrying. So, um, if you're watching and you do the same thing as what I was just speaking on, by all means, feel free to talk and express. And like they're saying, Pastor Jay, Pastor Shaniqua, God really just wants to hear from us. He really wants to hear what what we want to express, because he already knows, you know what I'm saying, essentially. And that was not my thought process. Like, he knows what I'm dealing with. He knows my sadness. He knows, like, I'm upset, but I just felt like I don't want to bring it to him, so
Yeah.
that was an area that is still an area that I'm working on as it relates to stuff like this, and many other areas in my life. So, okay, again, YouTube family, if you're out watching and you have questions, by all means, please drop your questions. I'll be monitoring the chat. TikTok family, if you have any questions as it relates to triggers, and as it relates to grief of any sort. Again, grief doesn't just apply to, the loss of a loved one, but it can apply to many areas in our life, because life's still life. Please drop them in the chat and I'll do my best to monitor your questions. Okay, so my next question then will go to, um, why does grief, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, like I said, as you just saw me just burst into tears. Mind you, I have never cried on this channel ever.
Uh,
And then all of a sudden, here's this topic, and I'm like, and I was having a conversation before we went on. I'm like, Lord, please don't let me cry. Please don't let me cry. And then here comes the waterworks. And I was
all
like, oh,
good. It's all
but
good.
I can't always be so hard. Try to act like I got it. I got it. But why does grief, do you feel, sometimes feel the same after years? I think that's the thing about, I don't understand, like, why it will just take us back to that right there, like that time, that place. Like, for me, when I've experienced that, it does never feel like, okay, it's been 5 years. Like, it's like, no, it's yesterday. And this, just happened. So I'm thinking, is that maybe something that I need to work on, to add tools to, help it, like, feel like, hey, Nina, it's been 20 years, like, since your mother's passing. There's no need to feel like it's yesterday, any longer. Why do y'all think that it just feels like maybe sometimes it just happened?
Uh, um, okay. Are there tools? Yes, but realistically, I don't know that it won't ever feel like yesterday. Um, think about it from this perspective. When we talk about loss of any kind, I mean, we've spoken a lot about death here, but when we talk about loss of any kind, there's so many surrounding things that attach itself to it. How you got the news, what was
Mm,
going on around you, who was there, what was said, what you were doing. There's so many things that it's almost impossible to unravel all of it. And
mm,
so the brain is a powerful thing. And the truth is, the fact that we can remember and, feel these feelings and it feels like it just happened yesterday. I know you guys are going to probably think, what? But it is a gift, actually, that we can be so acute and sharp here that we can still recall. Although we don't love to recall it,
yeah.
the fact is, if you get to a point where you don't recall it anymore, I think that would be more hurtful. It would
Mm,
hurt more when you don't remember the details and the nuances. And so I think that it's going to be something that's going to feel like it happened yesterday. I can tell you every single detail of the loss when it came down to us losing our baby.
Uh-huh.
I can tell you
Mhm.
every single detail of my dad's death.
mm,
Every detail. Okay. Now, losing the baby was 11 something years ago. Losing daddy was just a year ago. But both of them I can recall like it happened yesterday,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be an unhealthy thing. The truth is about choice. We choosing to let it be unhealthy, meaning are we choosing to allow it to make us stop and not
Yeah.
move, not do anything? Are we choosing to allow it to rob us from a future that we know our people would want us to have? That's when it's an issue. But I say embrace remembering. That's just my thoughts.
that's
Yeah.
good.
I love that. And I so resonate with that. early on in my journey, and we lost 2 babies too in miscarriage, and it was awful, and it still is awful, and it happened like 15 years ago. And I have 2 kids waiting for me up in heaven with their mom, and but it's painful still.
Mhm.
Someone once told me very early in my journey with losing my wife, they said to me, "Don't worry, it'll be less painful in time." And this is my response. I said, "Well, why would I want that? Why would I want it to be less painful? I mean, what's so wrong with pain that we as human beings run away from it?" And I get it. I don't like headaches. I don't like anything, but we so want to get rid of pain that we forget that there is pain in love.
Yeah.
There's
Mhm.
there is. And not having that person around us anymore is painful, but that's the price you pay for love. A lot of people say that about grief, right? Grief is the price that you pay for love. So I embrace it as well. I embrace those moments of pain. Yes, I don't always enjoy them. They're not my favorite, but at the same time, it's like, well, of course it's going to hurt. What else other outcome can I expect? Yes, the tools that I've learned and still learning is to, okay, bring this to God, bring this pain to God, let it come up. And I know I said that before, but I also say this a lot, and I learned this a long time ago, is that I'm going to worship God in my greatest pain. I'm going to say that to him. In this greatest pain, in this greatest loneliness, I worship you. In this anger, I worship you. In this disappointment, I worship you. It's been my basic biggest tool in moving forward. Is it any less painful? No. But is it more hopeful? Yes.
Mm. Oh, that's good. What you all were saying. And if you see me looking down, I'm taking notes because I have my pen
Yeah.
and I have my note again because this conversation is as much as it is for you viewer, it is for me too.
I'd like to say
Again,
something.
very, very tough conversation to have. I'm sorry, you wanted to say something?
Add something to that before you go to
Yeah,
the next question.
please.
Um, so I haven't heard this analogy used a lot anymore. However, it was one of the ones that was used when I was first learning about grief on the academic level, and it was about a person losing a limb,
Mm.
and
C.S.
how
Lewis.
if you
Yeah.
lose an arm or you lose a leg, no matter how many years go by, your entire being has had to now adjust to that loss. Everything about you changes, and you will never forget that arm or that leg. You will never forget it. You'll
Yeah.
Right.
never forget it. Not only will you never forget it, there are times that people who have lost a limb have phantom pain in the area where that limb was. And the thought process is grief is that way. When we lose someone or something that was crucial to our life, it's like losing a part of yourself.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that ache is there because that part of you is not there anymore. And your entire being had to now adjust to living a life with parts of you not there. That
Yeah.
is not to
Yeah.
minimize those who are amputees or who have lost a
No.
limb. We're trying to give practical ways of viewing a concept like grief that's hard to grasp unless you're really in it, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let me take a comment with a comment from. It's going to share the comments again. If you're on YouTube, we're live, and we're on TikTok live, so I'll be looking at both as best as possible to just answer any questions or comments. So if you see me looking every which way, that's what I'm doing. So one comment was left by LaShawn Smith, which that's actually my big sister. Um, she said that these words are so true for grief, that she also felt them when we lost our parents. And she said today would have been their 51st anniversary. She
Wow.
remembers details that I am
Wow.
like, I
What?
have like, but it just shows to how we all relate to the experience, very differently. So thank you, LaShawn Sissy, for your comment. I appreciate that. We appreciate that. Um, and did you have anything to add uh, before I go? Anyone else before I go on to
I
the
just
next?
thought I just thought that was such a great point. C.S. Lewis in his book A Grief Observed, which was one of the best books I ever read on grief, he talks about that very same subject, that his loss of his wife felt like an amputation. And in marriage, and I'm not saying the loss of a spouse is worse than any other loss. I'm just saying from my experience, since it's the only relationship where you're actually become one with someone on the planet, it's that amputation is severe and and very costly if you don't deal with it with the truth of who God is and who we are in Christ. And I don't say that flippantly. I say that because that's really what's helped me move forward, is with the truth of who He is. Because I do feel amputated, that uh, part of my oneness is not with me anymore.
Mm, wow. Hmm. Whew, so many different ways to look at grief and how it relates to just many different areas of our life. Again, as it relates to family, friends. As you mentioned, that amputee was a great example because I mean, you can only imagine losing a leg or losing an arm that has been with you like for X amount of years. And all of a sudden, this thing is gone. It's very, it's a good comparison too because it's like it almost feel like as it relates to like loved one, like something was taken from me. It's personal. You make it personal in that regard. So um
Mm.
yes. So it's like we can walk around. I'm going to get to this question too, in a healthy way because it goes back to something that I believe both of you had shared. My question is, how do triggers affect the grieving process over time? And something you said earlier, because I have not been, again, as I be transparent. I hope can only help someone else, and this is why I have these types of conversations, and I'm trying to be more transparent. But I was not relating triggers as anything healthy. Like I was just like, this is bad. And I don't like the feeling. And so it was very like one worded type of, and then I would just avoid. So I was working on getting better with not avoiding, and then also, okay, now how do I honor this process more so instead of going to, anger? So how, I guess in that regard, then how, and I will shape the question differently then. How can triggers affect our grieving process over time? Then I would
Yeah.
pose it as what can we do maybe to allow it not to affect us in a very hurtful way? Because I have seen within my family and then with others, how grief has just caused a person to spiral uh, to places of depression, and I mean for years,
Yeah.
to where they're not handling their process or the process of losing someone or something or whatever the experience may be in life. Very, very hard. So, how do triggers affect the grieving process over time? Let's just.
In every way imaginable. I mean, uh, we're all different. We all experience emotions, the same emotions, but differently, right? Because we're human beings and we're all wonderfully made by God. Uh, so for me, I've never been shy about dealing with my triggers. I'm kind of militant in the sense that and this was a little bit of a mistake for me too at the beginning. I was so militant about dealing with my emotions, um, that I saw everything as I started to see my emotions as threats to conquer, and that was the mistake. Instead of just emotions to feel and allow them to come up, because burying anything is never good. you know yeah, and because they just fester, so I always felt like, and I still feel this way, that my triggers are always going to come and new ones are going to be discovered. Like I said before, new triggers are going to be involved. So just to say a quick one, in my between my wife and I, we had what we call the banana tax. Okay, sounds silly. But every time I would go to eat a banana, she would have to take the first bite, or I couldn't eat the banana. It was the banana tax. She never wanted the whole banana. She just wanted the first bite of the banana. And the other day I went and, I buy bananas, of course. And I went to go into the other room to offer her a bite of the banana. Now she's been gone for 6 years, and I know she's been gone for 6 years. But I just took it and I go, oh, okay, honey. And then I said, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And I broke down and I cried because I wasn't able to pay the banana tax. Now, but I sat in the moment and I just said, okay, why is this hitting me so strange? I've been buying bananas for 6 years. Okay. I didn't stop buying bananas. You just have to let the emotion come and realize that the triggers are going to come. And when you avoid them, that's when things go bad.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's good.
I have a complex one. So my dad, my dad was not the nicest person, which is strange to say because the community loved him. He was great in the community. He just wasn't uh, great as a family man, put it that way. And there were times that he would be violent. Okay. And because of that trauma and the way that he was as a person, there was distance when it came down to my dad. Like, so we would be in the same space with him because my mom always wanted us to all still be there regardless. So we would be in the same space with him, but there was this huge chasm, emotionally. And eventually my dad would just not stick around. If we were all visiting, he would go. And we would resent that. We would feel hurt by the fact that we're here, because we loved him, even though he wasn't the kindest, but we would resent the fact that he would leave. And so, and there's a lot of moments like what I'm going to share here that after my dad passed, as my sister and I just kind of talked through some of it, the Lord showed me something, which is this was a man that recognized that he wasn't capable of what we needed.
Mm.
He just wasn't, whether by choice or just not being able to. So his best thought was, let me leave the space because when I'm in the space, no one's comfortable, everyone's on
Mm.
edge. The laughter, the joy is not around. He'd walk into a room and literally everybody tenses. And you can feel that when you walk into a room and everybody tenses and acts
Yeah.
strange around you. And so
Yeah.
he would leave. He would leave the space. And so we would be so hurt by it. Like, why isn't he making the attempt? Why isn't he trying? All the things you think about when your feelings are involved. As a daughter who wants my dad to just be dad, you know? And then he's gone now, and there's so many things about him. There goes my emotion.
Mm.
Things about
Mm.
him that plays in my mind, and I feel like the Lord has helped me to see he my dad thought it was the best thing to leave. It wasn't. We see it as an act of cruelty, like why would you just leave? When maybe for him it was, I don't know how to change 40 something years of behavior.
Wow.
I don't
Yeah.
know how to erase it. I don't know what to do to sit down with my daughters, because the daughters, and make years of bad decisions right. And they tense when I walk into a room. They fear me. Maybe I shouldn't be in the room. And so as I thought this, like, and this, I mean, so many of this is happening. There's so many things that come up, so many triggers, so many thoughts. And the Lord is helping me kind of just lay it out, look at it, and and expand the perspective. it doesn't change the fact that he was violent. It doesn't take away from the fact that what he did was wrong, but it helps me to see him in a way that I couldn't when he was here.
Mm.
I don't feel guilty about it, which is an interesting thing too, because you'd think, oh man, I would feel so guilty about how I thought about my dad. I don't feel guilty. I feel relieved. I feel blessed that the Lord is giving me a perspective where I can remember him now, not with just a bundle of complex thoughts and emotions, because it's still
Wow.
those complex emotions are there. But now what the Lord is doing is like he's taking every strand one by one and he's stretching it out before me so I can look at it in a different way, a more expanded.
Yeah. How beautiful. How
It's
beautiful.
helping me to move through some of those things, and I share that because there might be someone watching now or later where your grief or your loss is with someone who, you loved, but there was
Yeah.
conflict or there's a complex dynamic behind the love. And so allow the Lord, first go to him and tell him that you want him to do this, because the Lord is not going to just
Yeah.
barge his way in there.
Right. 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 Right.
Let him know, hey God, I do want to see if there's a way for me not to just have these heavy, ugly feelings and thoughts about someone that I loved but didn't understand. Can you help me to get some clarity? Even though they're gone, we can still get clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they're
Mm.
just not they're not, okay, this is going to sound mean, but they're not in the way for clarity to get here. So if the Lord was trying
No,
to
that
give me
makes sense.
clarity about my dad in the moment, God, I can't hear you because right now I'm nervous about this man who's 6'5", 300
Mm.
pounds, and
Yeah.
he has a temper. I can't hear you because he's in front of me. So without him being present, the Lord has given me an opportunity to see some things about him that I wasn't able to kind of view.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's good.
And can I ask a little question? Do you feel like you can now grieve that in a different way?
My grief is an interesting thing because my dad, he died of brain cancer. So we took care of him too. So there were so many things about his illness where here we are, we're feeding you with our hands that we used to defend. So it's, for me, the grief is still very complex. It hasn't changed fully yet. Um, how I see things, how I grieve him, because I still haven't had moments where I think of him and I'm like sad in a deep way. I I feel like there's layers of sad that I want to reach when I think of my dad. If
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
I'm still like, so the deep layer I want to get to as a daughter thinking about her dad being gone, I'm not there. I'm still
Yeah. It's powerful though.
surface level where it's like,
Yeah.
gosh, I can't believe he's gone. You know, but I do believe
That's
the Lord is
powerful.
going to give me the deep grief. And I know it sounds strange to even say that I want it, but it's because I didn't get to experience my dad the way I wanted to when he was here as a daughter. He was someone I
Yeah.
feared. So if I can at least experience him in a grief space like a daughter would her father, I feel like it would be a gift to me, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's so wonderful because I do believe that grief is the teacher that we don't want,
Right.
but the teacher that we need.
Yes.
Yeah. Woo. And that's so interesting that you bring that up too, because honestly, that's like been a part of my not wrestling with grief. Is just how I with the passing of my father, and so I don't know if I've ever shared this on this channel, but so my father, I always say he was a good dad. He was a good dad in the context of he was the best that he could be, like that he could be. Did I experience the type of relationship that I wish that I would have experienced as a daughter? No, because like there were some areas that I had to give to God to kind of reconcile how he was. Wasn't a violent man, didn't abuse us or anything like that. My dad was just not a very emotional man, did not
Uh,
communicate. And when you would talk to him about personal things, he would avoid or over talk you about something he wanted to talk about. So a lot of my growing up was me raising myself after my mother passed. So that age gap between like 16 to he passed when I was in my early 40s. That was me, trying to figure out life, So I'm saying without parenting, everyone without parenting, not saying that I didn't have mentors and all these things, but still, I think with that, when you have like that absence, you're still kind of figuring out, is this okay? Is this right? Should I be doing this? And what have you, whatever. So when my father passed away, that's why I said it was very interesting. You're bringing that up, Pastor Shaniqua. It was anger, because I was like, we finally got to this place of, 'cause he still was like had his ways as far as like over talking. There was places, times where he wasn't like the type that would say, "I love you" directly. I remember having to pray, like, Lord, this man is not telling me he loves me. Like, I don't want to talk to him. We had seasons where we did not talk for 8 years. Like when I say did not talk, like no communication whatsoever. So when he at the time that he passed, we were kind of like at that point of our relationship where things were beginning to heal. Where we were kind of coming to a place, okay, now we can kind of talk. Like we had stages in our relationship where I would have to be like, okay, you're over talking me, and like having to teach him how to communicate. I'm like, I'm sitting up here being the parent, like what is going on? I feel like I was very much so the parent. And so when he passed, I was like, this is an unfinished relationship, Lord. Like, what is going
yeah.
on? So that's, I think, my feelings of like that type of where I was at with grief. It was just a lot of like how you mentioned being confused, Pastor Jay, like why now? Like a lot of that was just I have not finished talking to him, but I guess maybe I did because he's gone now, so it's just like it was a lot of that for me. So yeah, very interesting on how, you kind of work around that. And you answered my question too, uh, uh, um, Pastor Joe, you answered it when I was going to ask, like, why do small things bring about such great emotions? And you
Uh,
mentioned the example of the banana, like, why do those small parts take us there? But again, it's the relationship, it's the love tied to the relationship or lack of love tied to the relationship, or whatever that was. It will literally like send you to that space. But I believe that, like you both were saying, um and to the viewer listening, let me be an example. Do not box your pain up. Do not avoid it. I was definitely one that I'm a blocker. Not so much now. Now I'm trying to, I'm still walking this thing out. Again, not saying that I'm perfect, but I try not to avoid, like, okay, this is bringing back this memory. Now I want to be able to say, okay, Lord, what do I do with this? Or if I have some place of something that I've learned from therapy, like, okay, they said do this, let me try, this instead of like, not today. I am not like dealing with this right now. Let me go. I
uh,
don't know outside and garden so I cannot think about it, or let me go to the store, let me go shopping, let me go, all the things.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah,
Some people
but
avoid because they're afraid that once it comes out, they can't get it, they can't call it back. Like if I start crying now or if I start raging now, then how am I going to stop? They're afraid of the unknown about themselves,
mm,
and I like to tell people this is when you get into spaces with people who you're comfortable with. Like someone that if you need to go to a rage room, and just in case you guys don't know what a rage room is, there are these places where you can go like break stuff. But if you need to go to a rage room, take the person that's not going to look at you funny if you're breaking up everything in the rage room. But it's
Yep.
okay to not know what's going to come out of you. But
yeah,
it's not okay to let it stay in there because it becomes something that now makes you sick.
Yep.
mm,
So if you're not sure, like, I don't know what's going to come up if I let myself do this, get with some safe people if you need to. Start small If that means you're going to go journal. Journaling in me doesn't work when I'm in my raw estate because I actually tear up the paper. I literally will take a pen, I'll start the
Yeah.
journal, and the next thing you know, I'm carving into that paper. So journaling for me doesn't do it. It's too dainty for my rawness. I need something a little bit more like I like to get my hands in the dirt when I like to garden. I don't know if we can say this here, but I'm going to say this too. I like the gun range, like certain things, certain moments. So just be creative instead of letting it sit in there. Be creative.
Yes.
Yeah, that answered my next questions. I was going to say, what were some of the things that we can do when that trigger comes? Like, what do we do? Like, instead of being I'm a former avoider, but though that is very helpful. Like you said, journal, whatever your thing is, gun range, running. But also I'm thinking like while you're doing all that, right? Are you processing too? Like, are you talking through it, or are you just kind of like, I'm gonna, do this specific activity to when that arrives, or when that feeling arrives?
For me,
I go to the river a lot, and I throw heavy things into the river.
yeah. Now you make me want to go
That's
to the
what
river.
It's a great thing, man, to hurl the biggest rocks that you can.
Yeah.
It's good to do that when no one else is looking, but but it is releasing.
Yeah, releasing, that's the word, to get it out. Get it out is the point, right? To get it out, don't hold it in, because holding it in does damage. It really, it does damage. And I think too, as far as, because I was just thinking, for me anyway, and I'll just speak for myself. I'm not speaking for anyone else, because I have experience myself with holding it in. The trigger's going to feel like it was like yesterday anyway. But with holding it in, I feel like, and now because I've held it in for so many years, when that trigger occurs, it is extremely impactful because I have not released it. So it'll feel like, okay, this emotion is overwhelming, because I've boxed it in for so long. And now you're trying to get 20 years of, mourning out in like a moment. And that's where I found that it's not healthy, because holding it just doesn't do anything, right? I haven't given it to God, or, I have not journaled it. I did not go, to, throw rocks or to the gun range. I did nothing, just it's been in here. And what is it doing while it's in here? By myself, to myself, nothing. So
I will say sometimes I'll think about it and sometimes I won't. It depends on the activity.
Sometimes you give me a break.
If it's the pool, I don't think about anything. Like I'll go to the pool because I'm in a heavy space, but the water is the one place I can go where there is nothing going on. Like my brain literally silence when I'm in the water. Whereas if you saw my punching bag. If I need to do some boxing, I might be thinking about it in the middle of that activity. Just depends on what the activity is sometimes. And there's something that we did years back that I think now, Manina, we need to bring it back and, have you come. We did what was called a watermelon smash. And so we had a local farm donate some watermelon. They weren't bad, but they weren't like the freshest of watermelon. And a bunch of people came together. We wrote some stuff on it, like if we were journaling, but we wrote on the watermelon. We put some plastic down and we smashed those things. Man, oh man, was it fun. And then we took it back to the farm and they gave it to the pigs. But so that it didn't even go to waste because the pigs were able to eat it. That's what they were going to do with it anyway. But it was a fun yet impactful thing that we could do. And so I want to encourage the viewers. One, you don't need someone or a leader or someone to kind of take you through an activity. You can create your own. That's one. But two, if you can't create your own for whatever reason, if it's like, no, I don't want to do it on my own, I want someone to engage with me, I want to encourage you guys to look up a local grief support group. Look into what your community offers. I've done a lot of grief support groups. I've facilitated a lot. Some are more program based where you're not smashing watermelon, and then there are some that are more physical where you're doing arts and all manner of things. So I want to encourage you to look into it. And if you're going to look into it, this is a little sidebar. Don't take your family members with you. Let everybody have their own group. Realize because it tends to stop you from being able to say the things you need to say when you know there are people who are in the same house with you, with the same family with you in the room. So if everyone needs a group, let's look for everybody instead of everybody being a part of the same group.
Yeah, that's good.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. And also, like, just to encourage someone, I was going to ask a question, and maybe it's still a question. For the one, uh, that you are very uncomfortable in sharing in front of others, and like when Pastor Shaniqua mentioned grief support group, and you cringed a little, like, I don't want to tell anybody my business. Like, I've been there, but community is very important. I don't know if y'all have any advice on to give someone that's like I don't want to talk, like, and not saying the grief support is the for you, the individual that's feeling cringy when they hear that, but it's good to put voice to what you're going through. And yeah, I would just say just source out a safe space. Maybe if that group that you join is not, you didn't feel right about it, then go check out another one. I don't know if y'all have anything else to add to that.
And I think I just think it's seasonal too, where you are at the moment too, because I've been to grief counseling 3 different times in 6 years. Some for a little bit longer, and some for really short times. It just kind of depends on where you are, and I think you can ask the Holy Spirit to say, "Okay, I'm not dealing with this particularly well. What is my next step?"
And if you join a group, you don't have to talk. You can come and sit in the group for however long you need to. And, now I'm not trying to knock people who lead these groups, but if you go to a group and someone's twisting your arm to talk, that's not the group for you anyway, and they're out of bounds. They shouldn't be doing that. But you don't have to talk. You can come and glean from others, and there may be an opportunity where something in your heart shifts and now you want to share, but it might just take you a while. But if you never share, that's okay. Um, the group is there so that you can see that you're not alone, not necessarily for you to have to talk. So there's that. And then again, you can always create your own community. It doesn't have to be one that's already established. You can say, hey, you know what, girls, guys, whomever, I need a community for support, and the thing that gives me comfort is watching Golden Girls. So let's do a Golden Girl support group. We're gonna sit together and laugh at Blanche, Dorothy, and Rose and them. Let it be what
Yep.
you need it to be. Does not have to fit somebody else's mold.
It's one of my favorite shows, by the way. That Frasier,
I
and
love
I'm not gonna get all too
Frasier. Oh my gosh, I love Frasier.
favorite shows. Okay, but that's good. Definitely seasonal, right? Know yourself, engage, ask Holy Spirit, and then if you know you're in the wrong group, like when you are forced to, that's bad. Group leadership sessions or whatever you want to call it. Even if you're for therapists, like don't force me to have a conversation because I'm not that person. But I don't want to drag our conversation out too long, but I do think it's important to get into this question here, and then we'll wrap it up. But for the believer, or for the non-believer, what does it look like to invite God into those triggered areas, or to our grief, into our mourning? As I shared I did not do it, and I was a Christian woman, loved the Lord. But I don't know why I just had a hard time, like, thinking the Lord can handle it. I don't know. But what would you, what does it look like, from y'all's, or however you want to share, what does that look like? If we could give someone some guidelines on inviting, God into those triggered moments. And like I said,
Yeah,
I
listen,
didn't, I didn't do well at it, so I'm not going to comment.
I'm not saying I did well at it at the beginning, or because my prayers for me, I could pray for other people, but my prayers for me at the very early part of my journey was just please help.
Mm,
That was my prayer life for
mm,
me. You know, I could pray for other people, but when it came to me, I would just say, please help. I I can't do this.
mm,
And now after 6 years, you know what? It's maybe a little bit bigger. Please help. You know, it's the same thing, maybe a little bit more words, but I am reminded of constantly of the goodness of the Father.
mm,
Death sucks. You know, it wasn't. You were right. It's not meant to be part of our story, and sin came in and made it part of our story, and so it hurts to lose people. It hurts to lose, you know, relationships. It hurts to lose so many things. We weren't meant for loss. We were meant to gain everything that the Father had for us. And so remembering the goodness of God, and that's the thing that I've learned the most. It's been a hard thing. I grew up in an abusive home, and I was, you know, so mourning my parents who were very abusive, um, took forgiveness. And that helped me learn the goodness of God. So that's been the thing that's helped me throughout this whole journey of mine is he's good. Cancer is not good. Sickness is not good. Death is not good, but he's still good. And matter of fact, when Christine, my wife, got diagnosed, and we were talking about it before we talked to anybody else, after crying together and after saying all the things that you need to say, what we're going to tell the kids and all those kind of things, we both looked at each other at the same time and said, but he's still good. And so I have remembered my wife's faith throughout this. Her
mm,
faith in God was tremendous. And so, you know, I wasn't good at it at the beginning either, and I'm not so sure I'm good at it now. But I invite God simply by saying, Father, you're good. Teach me what is good wherever I am at this journey now. And
mm.
that's basically how I do it. Sometimes it sounds a little bit more formal than that because I am a pastor after all. But but really it's just a personal relationship with Jesus saying, I can't do this without you, and I don't even want to try.
Yeah. Mm, that's good.
It looked different for me with each loss. And so I couldn't nail down for you that are watching, a perfect way, to be honest, because it really did
Yeah.
look different for me for each time. When we lost the baby, I refused to pray. They
Mm-hmm.
oh, we're
Mm-hmm.
praying for you and I'm like, stop praying. I literally was just so mean. I was like, don't say prayer. I don't want to hear you talk to me about prayer. I'm very grateful there were people still praying, but I was angry and I was just so devastated. And so, but what was strange about it was as much as I didn't want to pray, I didn't want anybody praying for me. I didn't want to go to church. There was a small group that my church was having that had some people in there in the group that was really, I mean, just very kind to me as I was walking through this process. And they were like, you can come if you'd like, don't if you don't want to. And so I went to that group and y'all, I was not nice to the group. They would be talking about God. I brought my crochet needles with me. I was crocheting in the corner of the group, scoffing at them as they're like, and God's so good. I was like, crocheting. That's what I was doing in the group.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
They loved me through it. They did not get mad with me. They understood where I was at. Now, I'm not telling people to go and do that, but I'm just telling you that was my experience for that loss. They prayed for me at the end of when they were doing their group prayer. I'm still not joining in. I'm just in the room and they prayed for me anyway. I needed it, but I was afraid to say it because I was
Yeah.
scared to be let down by God again. That's how I felt. So when I was telling people,
Yeah.
"Don't pray for me, don't do this, don't do that," it's because I was afraid that if I put my hope out there
Yeah.
outwardly, I would be let down. So
Mm,
for those of you who are watching, who are listening, whether you're a believer or you're not a believer, so for the believers, it's going to look different based on your loss. So I'll put it that way. And maybe based on where you are spiritually at the time. For those who maybe aren't followers of Christ, first of all, no judgment from me here. I because I believe grief affects everyone, no matter what your belief system is, right? But here's the thought process.
Absolutely.
What can you do if you don't have Jesus? No, but maybe you believe in someone or something else. Start there then. My thought process would be at least start there. At least start with what you do believe. Because if you don't do anything, isolation sets in. Depression and anxiety gets heavier and deeper. So, yes, I am a pastor. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus, all the things. But for those of you who don't, who might be watching, I'd rather you start with whatever you believe in. So that way you're doing something, going to something, someone about it. And, and you'll go from there. I trust God. It'll move from there, but start somewhere is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
yeah. Mm, that's good. 'Cause again, like both, you know, definitely got to start with whether you're a believer or you're a non-believer. Like
Have
you were
to
saying,
engage. Yeah.
yeah, you believe you're at different stages in your walk with the Lord anyway. And so, but mourning, believer or non-believer, it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And how we express it. So I like how you all explained this, we're expounding this conversation because one of the things that my takeaway, and I'm going to give my takeaways and um, have you all just share if there's anything else on your heart was um, help me to understand these are my emotions. And then for someone else that maybe can relate, these are my emotions. God gave me these particular emotions and how I want to, emotionalized, that is Menina, that's the way that I do it. So I may be a mourner, if as it relates to grieving something, I may mourn for 2 years, now what I would love to be able to do is to have the tools and, those things to be able to do it right and healthy and stuff like that. And somebody else may mourn for 2 days and they are good to go. But what I'm saying is like, uh, you're in a good place is what I've learned from just what you all was sharing. If you are just comfortable with your process and, do not box it in, you know, be comfortable expressing, where you are with each individual, like you were saying, there's different stages of triggers, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't realize that. I was just like, what is going on with me? Like, why am I still? But, it's very normal and triggers aren't always a negative thing. They're very healthy. And being that they're healthy because they are part of the process anyway. So, but I wanted to know if you all had anything else that you all wanted to share with the viewer as it relates to the conversation that we're having this afternoon. If so, by all means, please do so.
I want to share a tool. And the tool is not okay. I'm not trying to sell anyone something because you could literally find someone that can do this for you in almost every state that we're in. Okay. But there's something it's called temperament analysis. Okay. And temperament
Mm.
helps you to understand the way that you were wired and designed by God. And truthfully, knowing your temperament can help you also understand how you grieve. So, for example, there are some temperaments. There's a temperament called choleric. They're your get it done by any means necessary person. So they're the
Yeah.
ones that's like getting it done. Let's move. Let's get it done. There's the melancholy. They're the ones who want to get it right. So they want to do it the right way. And on top of it, too, they visualize everything. It takes them longer. Then you have the phlegmatic. They're the get along people. They're the ones that's they look chill, like nothing's bothering them. They look unflappable. You've got the sanguine temperament. They're the get recognized people. Sometimes they're the loud crier at the funeral, not because they don't mean it, but because they are expressive people. Then you have the supine. They're the people who need to be included. So they're the ones that's like trying to serve everyone, even if it's their loss. They're like, can I get you something to drink, instead of sitting down and letting people serve them? So I say that because, guys, we're going to encounter so many different people who grieve in so many different ways. And instead of us thinking that someone is grieving wrong, or,
Yeah.
maybe we just don't understand their grief, understand that because we're all wired differently, the grief will look different. The person serving is not bad. The person wanting to get it done is not bad. The person who's still crying after a couple years is not bad, nor is the person that, is the loud crier at the service. So just be patient. And for those of you who want to know how you're wired, just look up temperament analysis. You can go to the National Christian Counseling Association if you want to get someone in your area. I think Manina will probably post our information too. So I could also serve you in that area as well. It's one of my specialties. But I definitely encourage everyone to find out how you're wired. It encompasses more than grief. It tells you about yourself in general. You
Yeah, that's good. I immediately thought about the loud crier, the person falling into the casket over the casket when you said
know?
that. So instead of looking at someone like, why is he or she doing too much? You're like, no, give that person
Mhm.
grace and be
I
like,
mean, and
that's just
there
they
might be
grieve.
somebody who's just being theatrical, but the truth is that person could truly, because of their expressive nature, just not be able to manage their emotions like some other people in the room.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think it's the wonderful thing word you just said. It is this thing called grace that God is so richly given us, and it's one of the kindest gifts that we can give each other. Because a lot of times people don't know what to say to people who are grieving, or what to say to people who have been grieving for a long time. You know,
Mhm.
and I've discovered that I needed to have grace for that. Because
Mhm.
that's a trigger point for me when I can't talk about Christine anymore because it's been too long. So that's a trigger point for me. So I have to learn how to have grace for people in that situation. And like you said, understanding the different personalities, different temperaments, and the different way people move through life is
Yeah.
crucial just in normal life, anyways. But this wonderful word of grace that we could extend people who don't know how to deal with their own grief or your grief
Right.
either. So instead of blaming them for not saying the right thing or doing the right thing, I can extend grace to that. And that helps me deal with my grief at the same
Hmm.
time.
That's good. That makes me think of, excuse me. I was just thinking about the courses, not courses, shorts that information that we were putting out at Adulam with grief etiquette. That Pastor Shaniqua incorporated, because it makes you think, like, instead of like not knowing what to say, because it is uncomfortable, I think, for
Of
everybody.
course.
Like,
Of
you just
course.
don't know sometimes, like, what to say, or you think that you're saying the right thing and you're really not, especially if you have not been able to or can relate to that situation, as far as like, oh, I went through the same thing. And sometimes
Yeah.
you don't, that's not necessarily helpful to say either. I know what you've been through, you know, but right. That is not helpful. But I will say that I know in my own experience, like how you were explaining that, Pastor Jay, just when you're not around people that have lost parents, the conversation is just very different.
Yeah.
And you're kind of almost like, well, adjusting yourself for the other person, or the other person's trying to, you gotta tell when someone like just doesn't know how to, handle you or talk to you and all sorts. I pick up on all the things.
Yeah.
So yeah, very, very, very much so true and important. But that's a whole nother that could be a whole other episode too. Uh that Pastor Shaniqua can do. Grief etiquette. We should definitely
We could
do
do
that.
live,
Um
just like this. We just and answer some people's questions because some people just don't know. They're like they want to know, hey, what should I say? How can I help my friend or my,
Yeah.
maybe live from Greek to Purpose
I'm
with
all for
Nina. Let's jump in and do it with you guys.
I'm
And
all
Foster
for
Jay,
it. Will you come back and join us, Jay?
I will come back as often as you invite me. I'm very honored that you would have me add my little voice to this. You guys have
Oh
been
no.
great.
I'm honored to have the two of you again. Once again, thank you so much. Again, this was a very sensitive topic to me as well as it was my guest too. So I'm just grateful to have had y'all's support. Again, you all, my hope is just to show the viewer that community is everything. Like even if it's one or two, right? This right here is my community,
Yes.
people that I trust that I'm like, okay, let's have this conversation, even though I was trying to dodge it. Like, Lord, I don't want to do it. But I felt the pressing, on me to just talk like it's going to be okay. And I will say this too, just for the person that is, like trying to be more vocal in their process, or even if God has pressed upon you to do something for my example, and I'm not like the perfect Christian. But I will be nervous all the way up until the moment of. I'm like, it always takes me back to like when I was little and it was time to go to school and I'm like throwing up in the car and, in front of the school and my mom opens the door, cleans the car seat and she was like, okay, you ready? Let's go. Like, you're still going to school, right? I always like it that too. That's just me. That's just who I am. I'm still going to get the little nerves, I don't know if I want to do this, Lord. Nah, I'm not going to do it. And then, but I know it's something to do, but God is having me be more transparent and it's always just to help somebody else. So don't never let, your own inner anxiousness or nervousness stop you from
Amen.
vocalizing, what you're going through. But that's our time here on the From Grief to Purpose channel. If you all enjoyed this particular conversation, by all means, if you would like to hit that subscribe button, I've left the details for Pastor Shaniqua and Pastor Jay in the description so you all can click on their websites to get connected with them and all the many other things that they're doing and resources and what have you, and groups and support groups and podcasts. All the things are on there again. Tools and community. It will help you through your process, but just don't do nothing because it's not a good thing. But that's our time. Thank you again on TikTok. Thank you, YouTube family, for joining us and tuning in to this episode of From Grief to Purpose. All right, you guys, have a blessed one. Bye.
Bye, everybody.